What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to do front and rear pads and rotors on a 2021 Tesla Model S Plaid. So once you have the car up, securely jacked or lifted on a lift or whatever, go ahead and remove the wheels. After you've removed the wheels, you want to go ahead and turn the wheel to the proper orientation to make it easier for you to work on. Once you go ahead and done that, once you've done that, you can go ahead and remove these two little spring clips on the caliper. Usually what I like to do is just grab a screwdriver and you can just pop them out on both sides. Be careful because they are spring loaded, so they tend to fly. Once you've had those removed, you can go ahead and grab a 21mm ratchet and take out these two 21mm bolts on the top and the bottom of the caliper. That's what holds them onto the knuckles. Before you fully remove that last bolt, I always like to have something like this in hand. This is a caliper hook. Prevents the caliper from hanging just by the brake line, and you can usually hang it up on a strut or on a control arm or something. So I usually just hook it in right before I put in take out the last bolt. And you can just go ahead and take off the caliper. I almost forgot. Before you pull off that bolt, on the back there is a 10mm bolt right here that holds the bracket that holds the brake line. You want to go ahead and remove that. Okay, so once you have those bolts out, go ahead and put the hook, move the caliper out of the way, secure it to the car. And you can go ahead and remove the rotor. Once you've taken out the old rotor, go ahead and compare it to the new one and make sure the new one is the exact match. Once you've made sure that's correct, go ahead and put the new one on. These new rotors came with set screw that for some reason they didn't put in the stock rotors. So you can go ahead and screw that in. For these calipers, in order to spread those pistons, you're going to need a tool like this. This is a Caliper Spreader, ratcheting, and it's dual-sided. So what you want to do is go ahead and remove the old pads from the caliper. Then you can go ahead and put this tool in there. Make sure you're facing it in the right orientation. Okay, once you get your caliper tool, you go ahead and put it in the caliper. And go ahead and just spread those pistons. Once you spread the pistons on the caliper, you go ahead and grab the new brake pads, and you want to slide them in the guides that are on the caliper. Be careful, make sure you have them on the right orientation, facing the right way. Once you do that, you can go ahead and take the caliper off the hook, and you want to place it back on the rotor. And then you want to grab one of the bolts, just put them in. Don't forget to put that little 10mm bolt on the back that holds the brake line bracket. Go ahead and finish tightening these. So now you want to grab a torque wrench or whatever you use to torque, and you want to torque these two bolts to 120 Newton meters. Okay, once you've tightened these two bolts and tightened the back bolt for the little bracket, you can go ahead and put these little springs back in. You want to make sure you put the long side towards the inside of the caliper, and these little things got to go on the pads. So you can go ahead and put them in. The bottom first, and then you just push them in with your finger. Once you're finished with putting these in, just double check everything, make sure everything's tight, everything's in place properly. You can go ahead and put the wheels on and torque them to spec, and you're all set on the fronts. Okay, to put the car in tow mode, go inside. You can go ahead and press this little car button, and then you go to service. Once you click service, you see towing, press towing. So you have to press the brakes, and then you press transport mode, and then it automatically releases the rear calipers. Okay, so once you have your car in tow mode, you want to go ahead and disconnect this plug that plugs into the parking brake mechanism on the rear caliper. That way it won't engage itself by accident. And then you want to go ahead and grab a 14mm ratchet and remove the two bolts on the top and the bottom that holds the caliper to the caliper bracket. And it's the same story as the fronts. You want to go ahead and grab one of these caliper hooks, and that way you can hook it. Once you have the caliper hung up, go ahead and take an E18 E-Torx bit, and you want to go ahead and remove the two bolts in the back of the calipers, or the caliper bracket I should say. These are what the bolt looks like. Then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and get the bracket, and there's these little pins up here or tabs that hold them and prevent them from coming out. Just push that tab in and push the pad out, and they come right out. Same thing with the other side. Then you can go ahead and remove the rotor. Okay, so once you have the rotor in place, go ahead and grab the caliper bracket and put it back along with the bolts. So once you've snugged those bolts up, you want to go ahead and torque them. The ones on the rear get torqued to 120 Newton meters as well. So go ahead and grab your torque wrench. Set it to 120. There's not that much room behind there to stick a torque wrench, but there's just enough. Bottom, and to the top. You might have to hold the caliper a little bit out of the way. And those are properly torqued. Now you can go ahead and put the So once you have those torqued to spec, you can go ahead and put the pads in. On the old pads, I saw that the inside one was the one with this little thing sticking out. So just make sure you put that too on the right side. Make sure you put them in the right orientation too. So just go ahead and slide them in. The rear ones as well. Now you can go ahead, unhook the caliper. You go ahead and put the caliper back in place. So for this one, I didn't have to press the calipers in because this car is fairly new. Our client just wanted better brakes, so he bought some two-piece rotors and some upgraded pads. But usually you would have to squeeze in the calipers or the pistons. Go ahead and snug those bolts up. Grab a ratchet and tighten those two with the 14mm. That holds the calipers into the bracket. And then what you want to do, go ahead and plug in that connector. Once you've plugged that connector in, just double check everything, make sure the bolts are tight, make sure everything's good, everything's lined up properly. And then make sure that plug is connected properly, and then you're all set. And to get out of towing, just press the brakes, press transport mode, and then you're out.